Welcome to the Digital Business Evolution Podcast, a place that you can now call home. I know you're creating long-lasting impact in this world, and you absolutely deserve the time, location, career, and financial freedom that you desire. I'm here to guide you with proven strategies, tools, and mindset hacks that I've taught to thousands of business owners. You'll also be hearing from exceptional guests sharing stories of their own personal and business evolution. My name is Jessica DeRose, and I'm here to teach you what I'm learning. We are all inherently worthy, regardless of the number of degrees, awards, and accolades that we've collected along the way. Grab a notebook, a coffee, and enjoy the show. Hey, I'm jumping on real quick to let you know about a really cool opportunity to work with me completely for free. So every Tuesday, I'm offering coaching over texting. And that means the first 10 people to text me on my number and ask me a question, I'm going to coach them back completely for free. Voice memos, long form text, it 100% is me. This is the stuff that lights me up most in my business. So your questions can be anything from business to strategy, working with your spouse, RV life. Really, there are no questions off the table. You just need to make sure that you get it in quickly on Tuesdays because I am only coaching the first 10 people. So my number is 973-358-7836. This is for US numbers only. Make sure on Tuesdays you text me your questions. I'll get you your answers, and you'll be added to my text community where you're going to be getting different texts from me throughout the week. Strategies, motivation, all the things. So 973-358-7836. Can't wait to hear from you. Hello, welcome back to the show. I am over the moon excited because today I have a super special guest with you. Fun fact, this guest is someone who I reached out to the other day just to catch up as girlfriends. And we put it on the calendar because, if it doesn't go on the calendar, it doesn't actually happen. And it dawned on me, why don't we record a podcast episode? So you are hearing live as Aisha Marshall and I are catching up as girlfriends, but also going to be dropping massive, massive value. So Aisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Also, I feel like the listeners are getting a good sneak peek, almost like a behind the curtain of friends talking, because there's so many times, and I'm sure you probably felt this, but like when you're talking with a friend and you're like, we should have recorded this as a podcast. And
oh my
like,
gosh, always.
Redo it.
Always. We jumped on, and before we hit record, we started talking. I was like, all right, let's just do it. Let's just hit the record button. So I'll do the formal intro so people can get to meet you. This does not even scratch the surface of how incredible you are. So innovative creativity and Aisha go hand in hand. With an expertise in creative development and digital strategy, Aisha knows how to create a visual campaign that converts. Aisha is the founder of AAM Consulting, a marketing consulting firm that specializes in bringing direct-to-consumer products to the market. Aisha is also the founder of a fine jewelry brand called Whxte, which I am obsessed with, and they're rings for all your different fingers. Additionally, she's an Arizona State alumni, having a BA in journalism and mass communication. And fun fact, she was a lawyer. So not your average path. Aisha was also a former ASU spirit leader and still enjoys dancing in her free time. And Aisha and I first met, I feel like through social media, just having a lot of the same friends about 4 years ago, and our paths kept crossing. And then, of course, getting into different mastermind rooms, we started to officially cross paths. But the way that I was first really introduced to you was through an old agency that you had.
Yes.
Can you take us back?
Oh my gosh, you guys, like literally, first of all, started this agency like traveling on the road with my husband because he was playing football and I was either like at a crossroads of like, do I practice law or like it's our first year of marriage? Do we like do marriage long distance? Like, what is that even like?
Was this when you were back and forth with Canada?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. I know. So my husband was in the NFL and in the CFL. And when we got married, he was transitioning from the NFL to the CFL. And so we would do 6 months in Canada and then 6 months in the US. So like zero roots. Like if I even wanted a regular like matrix type job, like people would be like, you're flaky because you haven't been anywhere for 6 months. Like you only work for 6 months in each place. So I was already doing like branding stuff on the side for people and like blogging and website building. And I was like, well, why don't I just get paid for it in the meantime? Like I can't work in Canada. I don't have a work visa. Like,
sure.
right? Like I'm just spinning literally, I would go to spin and come home and be like, now what? Like, what is there
hold
to
on.
do?
How did you get into branding though? You went to school for law.
That's okay. So I went to the Cronkite School at ASU, which is a journalism and mass communication school. And during that time, it's like 2011 to 2013. And that is around the time where no one's like really watching the news anymore like that. No one's getting newspapers. No one's doing a lot of things. And they hadn't been doing it for a long time. And so there were so many cuts at news outlets that our school was the number one school in journalism. So they were pivoting quickly and basically said, we need to teach you everything. Like if you want to be in this field, the only way that you'll be hireable is if you not only know how to be a reporter, but you know how to write, you know how to create a website, you know how to blog, like literally everything.
What a blessing.
So I know. So if it wasn't for that, like honestly, they taught us all of it. So I was just doing it on the side. I had a blog. That's how this is like a whole roundabout backstory. I never talk about this, but I have the Instagram handle Aisha, Aisha. And everyone's like, how did you get that? How do you have a one word? Like how?
Madonna, Oprah, Aisha. I love it.
I know. And so back when Cronkite taught me how to do things, we had to, for one of our assignments was like to create a blog. So I did two. One was like, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And then that one was about stories of people who would cheat on other people. Like it was just a blog of like anonymous stories of people that were like in cheating situations. The other one was called Always Aisha, and that was like my personal blog. And so I wanted the handle, like my name, like I wanted my name as a handle. And that I was literally able to reach somebody at Instagram and had an email correspondence back and forth telling them, this is my blog, it's my business. And there's confusion in the marketplace because
I love it.
like, and no one's actually using this name at all. Like no one had the handle.
Yeah.
And so then the next morning I woke up, she's like, oh, okay, perfect. I just set it up for you. There you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
But to have the foresight and like not audacity, but to have the guts really to reach out and just shoot your shot.
Right. And just see, like now people have to go through like trademark attorney stuff in order to like get a handle from somebody. Like anyways, the reason why I was able to do all of those things is because I learned it all at Cronkite.
Incredible. So you go to school for journalism, you then get into law. Like I said, when I read your bio, you had an agency that you actually shut down. You have a consulting firm, I'll call it. Now you have a jewelry line. And I just think of you as like this branding expert. So you have all these different tools in your toolbox. And for the record, if you're not watching the YouTube video of us, Aisha is not like 80 years old. It sounds like she is based on how many lives she's lived.
Lifetime.
So what I really want to talk about, I want to talk about all of your story, of course, and all of how you built these different things and how you even sparked the interest to jump from one thing to another. But that's really what I want to talk about is the path that it's taken and the growth that it's taken for you to transition or pivot, or as we call it here, evolve over and over and over.
So I want to set a disclaimer because sometimes I feel like when we hear people's stories, we're like, how did you have the foresight? Like, wow, right? Like even when you were talking about me, like reaching out to Instagram, like what foresight? And I'm like, well, I really didn't have any. I was just kind of like, oh, let me try. And then in hindsight, I look great. But with this, it is how I'm talking about it is 100% hindsight because there's a lot of just like dirty work. I feel like that you have to do like in the weeds on yourself and have more emotional intelligence than maybe you had the day before every day, to pivot and get to a place where you feel really good.
Yeah.
So that's my like disclaimer there. But yeah, so like I honestly attribute it to like most things and most people, I feel like some sort of spiritual awakening. So that is how it started for me. But prior to that, like I had an agency, 12 full-time employees, like 15 interns on rotation every semester. Unreal. Like when I tell you I was drowning because there's a transition as an entrepreneur and like when you're doing it by yourself, you're stellar, you're so good at your job. And then when it comes to the point where you have like one person that you're trying to explain to, you're like, how come they just don't get it? Like you inherently get it. And then the person that you hire just like doesn't get it. And you're like, why, how, why? But really it's a point of reflection for you as a leader to be able to explain those things that are inherent to you.
Yeah.
That make you great. Like that's the difference between, I feel like, leaders, great leaders, right? Yes. A good leader is like, watch me and learn. And a great leader is like, I have the emotional intelligence to know what's inherent for me and how to explain my inherentness to you so that you can pick up on it too.
Oh, I love this conversation. I feel like this is a conversation I've been having more and more recently because I believe we're all influencers, right? We all influence one another. And nowadays, especially if you're running a business of any sort and you're using social media or marketing online, we're all marketers, we're all creators, we're all influencers, but it is a completely different ballgame to be a leader.
Oh, no one teaches, like Cronkite taught me a lot. Cronkite taught me so much. They really set me up for success. But even like being a cheer captain, even like student body president, all of the things, like I was even student body president in law school. Like even that, I feel like it's another level, right? That doesn't teach you how to be a leader.
No.
It literally doesn't. Like, that's the one thing that I felt so like ill-equipped for as we were scaling. I would tell my husband all the time, like, no one teaches you how to be a leader. And I sucked at it a lot of times.
Oh my
like,
gosh, same.
There are still times that I'm like, think about in my sleep now about the agency that was.
Okay, so let's pull back the curtain for a second, because for the person who's listening, who's like, wait, okay, I get it, but I don't get it. What the heck is a leader? What's so different about it? Because for me, I went to school to be a teacher. And so I just thought intuitively, I'm going to be a good leader because I'm a good teacher, and they're not the same. So what are some of the leadership things that you were either really good at or you had to work on or you hated? So just what were some of the leadership things that you were doing in the day-to-day?
A big one is understanding personalities and what motivates people. So like personality types. So honestly, it wasn't until, so I had the agency for 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 4 years.
Wow.
It wasn't until like year 4, end of year 3, where I realized we should be doing personality tests like as part of onboarding because, and this was like one of the biggest blows. I'm sure this happened a ton of times, but when I finally realized it was our project manager. Loved her to death. She was so amazing. I felt like she reminded me a lot of myself, just an extremely hard worker. Like, honestly, she was Gen Z, but like with a baby boomer heart, like baby boomer, blue collar, Midwest heart. Like she would get it done by any means necessary, like knew, like had great work ethic. Like she was just great. And how I receive love is gift giving or receiving gifts. For me. So that's what I was giving her to show her, like, you're so great. Here's this, here's that. Like, here's this expensive thing and this expensive thing. And like, here, right? Well, she ended up leaving. When everyone was poaching people, a Silicon Valley startup with a lot of money poached her from us, like stock options. Signing bonus, like $20,000 more in salary. There's nothing I can do to compete with that.
Yeah,
right?
No gift.
no gift that I could afford. Like stock options, like they're promising a dream that no monetary amount I could be able to fulfill. Right? Yeah. Like they could vest or they couldn't, and no one would know. Anyway, one of the things that she had mentioned was that like she didn't feel praised.
Words of affirmation.
Verbally. Yeah.
5 love languages.
And then it clicked because then I remembered like in my marriage, we've had those conversations. Like we both receive and give love very differently. And then I'm like, oh wow, this translates to work too. Like all things do. Yeah. And it just made me more cognizant. Like if I knew what motivates people, if I knew what motivated my team, some people have 0 motivators and I'm like, they should not be on board. And that those people are like bottlenecks. There are other people who do have motivators. Yeah. And when you know them, you can speak to those things. Like we're just not speaking the same language. It doesn't mean that you know what I mean? How impact, right? So
I love that. So leadership is really, just like knowing and understanding your people. And what I also heard, which is something I feel has been a huge lesson, and something I've been working on is just communication. Like leadership is a different level of communication.
Oh yeah.
And compassion and difficult conversations. And oh my gosh, I've had to let a couple of people go over the years. And I mean, I lose sleep over it. I'm an empath through and through. It makes me sick to my stomach. And only through practice have I gotten better with it. Not the act of letting them go or the difficult conversation, but with how I actually navigate my own emotions and knowing maybe I shouldn't schedule something immediately after, right? Like now I can figure that out. So what's just another one or two things that you think of when you think of like real leadership?
This one I feel like is a hidden gem, and it goes into communication, but it is not using words like that. It's words that are not descriptive. So every time you say,
maybe we should do this. Yeah.
Or even in Slack, right? Like I love someone gives you like 3 versions of artwork. I love option 3. Let's make sure that's this and that, right? Like they need way more clarity. Let's make sure option 3 has X, Y, like know this, that's the, like it needs to be, I'm sure I'm using, definitive, clear, no questions in virtual communication. Because when there's questions, you will have like an entrepreneur, even just a regular employee who's trying to make sense of it and will do their best job.
Right.
They bring it back and it's how they interpret you using it and that, not how you are actually using it and that.
Yeah.
And so now you're like, they don't listen. This is the 4th time they've done that. It delays the timeline, but like, man, it's you. You're not.
You're the bottleneck.
Descriptive enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one is very small, but it's just like, I even catch myself now, like, okay, I need to like, just take the extra time to explain every single word. There's no, I don't even know grammatically what the word's called, but there's no, whatever those words, it's that, whatever. Another thing I would say is being able to compartmentalize personal inside of the business working.
Did you just pull that from my brain? Because I was literally sitting here thinking this one right now going, all right, we got to talk about like the personal and because the trickle that happens. So go ahead. I love that you just pulled that.
Well, so here's the thing. How would it look if I went through some sort of family hardship, some life hardship, some personal hardship, and just like dropped off the face of the earth? Yeah. Now, when my team goes through a personal hardship, what have I given them permission subconsciously to do?
To just drop off, disappear, recluse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or if I get out of a meeting with our CFO and my CFO is like, you guys are in the red and I don't know how you're going to make payroll. And then I go into a team meeting, irritated, pissed off. What am I telling my team without telling them, right? Like, you have to be able to compartmentalize just show up for this, like in this podcast. I need to just be here in this podcast right now and in it. I may have a meeting afterwards and I'm like dreading. I don't, but I may have a meeting afterwards and I'm dreading and I just can't bring the energies over.
Yeah. It's so true. And I think it's important to realize that what Aisha's saying, and I'm agreeing with, is not that you can't have emotion or experience emotion. You don't need to be a robot. We don't need to compartmentalize where we don't ever get to share, but it's really important. And I love the example you used, oh my gosh, the CFO says you're in the red. If you bring that sort of fear-based energy back to the team, what you're also doing is you're laying out uncertainty. These people are dependent on you, right? And so when you come back and you bring that energy, or you even bring in that conversation of uncertainty, well, now they're fearing, do I even have a job tomorrow? Like, is this going to be okay? Should I start looking for something else? So yeah, I think compartmentalizing, again, of course, things happen in people's lives, right? There's a death in the family. There's compassion there, compassionate leadership. Of course, take the time that you need, but also it really is like showing up how you want others to show up and being able to move aside the personal life stuff and the stressors in the business so that everyone can be running optimally. Yeah, totally. Totally. That one's really hard, especially because it's hard when you transition from like a self leader to a team leader. It happens so fast that you may not even realize, okay, now this requires me to lead a lot differently. Like all of us can lead ourselves pretty well. Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, and going into that is just also like making that transition from self-leader to team leader hello, control.
Yeah.
Right? Like giving up some of the control, giving up the perfectionism, trusting other people that they could do it the same, if not better than you can, removing the ego. Like there's so many layers of leadership that people really don't talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. And this will be my last comment on that, but I had a business coach, and this may be confronting to those who are listening, but I had a business coach. I was like venting about like my team. I just feel like I hate their attitude. It's like toxic behaviors. I feel like I'm just like, this should not be the vibe. And she was like, you know that your team's behavior is a reflection of leadership, and which means it's a reflection of you, which means how they act is literally a mirror getting shown back at you.
Yeah.
And I was like,
ouch.
Gut punch.
You're like, I didn't ask for your opinion.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to end this call now.
We're done.
Yeah.
You misinterpreted my question. It's so true. All right. So you have this agency for 4 years, which you end up parting ways. You end up shutting it down, getting to go through so much growth of, gosh, what does it look like to shut down a company? How do you let go of 12 full-time employees, 10 interns, the emotional battle? And for this, I feel I was around for some of it with you, and I got to witness the beautiful growth that you went through. But man, it was dark at times, and it was not the prettiest transition. So at that point, you still have like your own consulting, you're shutting this agency down, and then you decide, I'm going to go in to become a jewelry designer. So what are the steps that you've taken in the past? Because you've now reinvented yourself multiple times. How do you reinvent yourself? How do you rebrand? But more importantly, when are you able to know and discern that it's time, rather than, I can't do this anymore, I'm quitting and I'm running away, versus this chapter has ended and I'm ready to move on and grow something new?
Yeah. So from the first knowing of like, hey, this chapter is ready to move on, I did a sound bath. I'd never done one before. I was literally just going to support a friend, and she's like, sit up front. I'm like, okay. So I like set up my little mat up front, like lay down, and it was loud for sure. And I was like, oh, this is like really loud. I've never like felt sound like this before, because you're literally feeling like the vibrations throughout your body. And this is like during, like in the thick of COVID, and it was a community sound bath. So it was like outside with a lot of people, and I hadn't had COVID at that point yet. So like midway through, my throat starts to feel like it's getting tight, and I'm like, do I have COVID? Like, did I just get it right this second? And like everything was so new, right? So we don't know like how fast do you get it from contact? Like there's so much like fake news out there too. And also I was just like, I don't even know what the symptoms are going to feel like for me. People like clearly are dying, and then there's people that are not, and I'm like, oh, is this a signal? Like I literally was like freaking out that I just caught COVID, right? And I'm like, if this is the beginning, oh my gosh, like who even knows? And and so the sound bath is done. I'm still kind of like, oh, my throat's kind of a little tight. And so I tell my friend, and pause there. Previously, from January to March, the sound bath is in March. From January to March, I was having like hearing issues. Like my hearing was just so weird. I couldn't figure it out what it was. I would wake up in the morning and be like, I can't hear, but I can hear. I almost felt like it was like clogged or plugged. Did all of the things. I wasn't like filled with wax. Like literally, I didn't know what was going on. And to the point, like on Zoom calls, I would have to put headphones because it was just like the way the sound was hitting my ears. I just didn't like it. Anyways, sound bath happens. I leave the sound bath. My friend's like, how did it go? And like, my throat honestly is just like really tight. She's like, okay, when I wrap up here, we'll like download afterwards. I'm now freaking out because I'm like, a download afterwards? Like, what does that mean? So I'm like, I get in the car, I Google negative side effects of a sound bath. Like clearly I'm having an allergic reaction right now. Like something's happening. Yeah. From a sound bath. So then I'm Googling like allergic reactions to sound bath. It sounds so funny, but you guys, like I literally was, for like the woo people that are listening, I was very green, like still in the Matrix green type of thing. And so I Google throat hurt sound bath. And then I like, you know how Google will populate like
Sure.
similar questions that take you down the right path or the wrong path, who knows? And so it said blocked throat chakra. And I'm like, okay, well, Google, like, what's a blocked throat chakra? And then side effects of a blocked throat chakra. Like, I'm just going down all of throat chakra things. And one of the side effects of a blocked throat chakra is loss of hearing. And I'm like, okay, well, what does this mean? And then they're like, you're there, Google, whatever, whomever's blog or whatever that I'm reading is like, you have something to say that you're like not saying.
Oh, I have chills.
And in that moment, I knew exactly what it was.
What can you share with us what it was?
Yeah, that I was needed to like part ways with my partner.
Business partner. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, not my husband.
Yeah. He's still here. We love him.
Still here. We love him. Yeah. And so then I went home and I didn't part ways in that moment, but I was like, we just need change. And if there's no change, then I don't want to do this anymore.
So how long was the gap of time between that realization to actually having the conversation, and what physically and emotionally was coming up for you in that time where you weren't actually saying it, but you had the awareness that you should be?
Yeah. So between the time that I said it and we shut it down was end of March to July 5th. That was when I was like,
but from March when you realized it to when you actually said something to your partner, how long was that?
Oh, the drive home. You
called her during the drive home?
I called when I got home.
Wow.
I take instant action. Like I am an instant action taker.
And that's why you have multiple businesses.
Yes. Yes. I am an instant ass action taker. Yeah.
What was your explanation to her? Just, I had a sound bath and this is over?
I explained the whole 2 sentences. Had a sound bath, this is over. No, I explained like the whole process in which I explained to you, like, because we were close friends, great friends. Like I just was like, this happened. I kind of started crying. And at that point in my mind, I was like, it's not going to be done.
Sure. 4 years. It's not going to be done.
Yeah. No, I was like, there will be change.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like, okay. Wow. And that was it. Yeah. And then over time, there just wasn't change. And even like up until the day I said, I don't want to do this anymore. Like we need to shut it all down. Like I realized that morning and then talked through it with Cam and then literally got on a call and was like, I'm done.
Wow.
I'm done.
I acknowledge you for, again, like the difficult conversations, the recognizing what you need, the having the boundaries, the action taker. I mean, that stuff is not easy. You make it seem easy. And for you, it might feel easy because it's innate, but yeah, I mean, that's huge. So you then go through a process, which is basically over a year of now separating as a business owner.
Yes.
Shutting that down, which means you're shutting down revenue, income. Hey, I'm popping in to tell you something super juicy. And no, I promise I won't be selling you anything. Join me on July 13th for a free interactive workshop packed with hands-on coaching and direct one-on-one insight during our live Q&A. We'll be deep diving into each of the 4 coaching superpowers so that you can harness your strengths and navigate your blind spots to amplify your message, income, and impact. Taking the quiz and knowing your unique superpower is only step 1. This workshop will enable you to uncover what it all means and how you can actually leverage this information in your business, life, and relationships. Be sure to head over to our show notes and get yourself registered. I'll see you there.
Oh my gosh, you guys, it's so weird to even think. Like we were on track by like April to make over $1 million that year. Like in, I believe revenue is the right word, over $1 million coming in gross.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm working on the story behind being better at my numbers. So there's that. That's why I'm like,
yeah, revenue.
Yes. Which was huge. Like
that's massive.
I was so excited for that. Yeah. I couldn't even believe it. Right. And so that there was a whole like undoing in terms of like shutting that down, but also like forecasting. Like my husband and I had big plans. We're like, yeah, we're going to do this to the house. We're going to do this. We're going to like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to travel here. Like we're going to invest in this. And so I like this immediate stop, like the repercussions of me taking instant action also was hard for like my brain and heart to catch up.
Yep.
because I had plans.
Of course.
We had New Year's goals that we'd written down that like a lot of them were financially based.
Yeah. Well, then you're, like you said, undoing, you're sort of having to work through, rewrite your entire identity and how you even see yourself. I mean, everything from as silly as it sounds, but the people listening get it. Your old Instagram handle, the business that you had built, the following you had built, you had just gotten Forbes 30 under 30. Like this is literally your identity. Yeah.
All literally exploded. Like the year before that year, actually, we just got Forbes 30 under 30 for marketing and advertising. And, like it really was. And for anyone who's like familiar with Enneagram types, I'm a 3, which I think may be from trauma, but that's a whole other podcast. I think there may be something underneath the 3, but regardless, my dominantness right now is a 3, and accolades, praise,
same.
All that is huge for me.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like such an undoing because I had so much identity and like in the business that I created.
Yeah. I mean, that resonates so deeply for me. Same,
Yeah.
So rewinding for 1 second, how fast after you sort of made this breakup did the hearing come back and the throat clear up?
Immediately. I never had a hearing problem again.
That's insane.
It's sick. I like downgraded how does Joe Dispenza that I downgraded like my like negative DNA and upgraded my health. And so then now I'm on a new wavelength. And for those of you that I'm like talking gibberish, it'll make sense one day. I just started to like operate on a new wavelength. I felt pretty free, but not entirely free. There was still so much resistance. I felt so guilty. There was so much resistance after the sound bath still, because I said what I had to say, but like the actions didn't kind of match. Right.
Yeah.
When I said to shut it down, I started to feel so bad that I felt so good.
That makes sense.
I like felt very guilty for feeling good.
Yeah. I shouldn't feel this good. And I'm sure too, with like such a beautiful friendship that you had with your business partner, to see any sort of pain or discomfort or financial struggles or anything in her world that is painful, right? Or to then be feeling like you're thriving. Now your health is like boosting, your energy's boosting. You kind of don't really know what you're doing in business, but you're like, it's okay. I'm on this path now.
Right.
So I totally understand that the guilt, and then the guilt that you must have felt. I shouldn't put that into your mouth, but I know I would have felt a lot of guilt for letting all these employees go. And there's such a heavy responsibility. I know we have employees, and it's like, it's so exciting to know that we help them pay their bills and put food on the table, but it's also a lot of pressure.
It was so much pressure. Like I felt so bad. In hindsight, this probably wasn't the best thing to do, but whatever. I'm at peace with the decision that we made. But we like emptied out the bank.
Yeah.
Gave everyone a severance, gave all of our clients the previous month refund back. Like we were pretty generous in terms of shutting things down. We could have just said, hey, sorry, everyone's SOL, and we'll just like split the difference.
Yeah.
But I just I felt really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Integrity. So yeah. And what's even crazier from an energetic standpoint, I felt so good that, and you can tell I'm like waffling between two, because when I would feel really good, so many other opportunities would start to come. And then I started to feel bad that like everything was going so good, right? Like in my mind, I'm like, it can't be good, but it could be good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a whole mind thing, but literally for a whole year, I was like, there was so much undoing that I just felt like I like borderline depressed, honestly. It would be in bed all day, no motivation to do anything. I was just like,
I mean, you're grieving.
Yeah.
You're grieving the loss of a business, of a friendship, of accolades, of all these things. So
I felt like every day was Groundhog Day. Like every day was the same.
Yeah. It's insane. At what point, and I know I kind of know where this came from, but tell the listeners, at what point were you like, okay, you know what? Today's the day I'm getting out of bed and I'm going to start a jewelry line.
So it was like a slow drip over time, because I was like, what do I want to do? I always had the name Whxte with an X. Like for years I've had the name, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I can do like a devotional cards, or maybe I can do like, I just never knew what would land with it, but I always had the name. I even like pawned off the name 2 times to 2 separate people. Like, this is an amazing name. Like, I haven't used it. You can use it. God bless that I didn't. But anyway, so for Forbes, I gifted myself a ring that I designed. And that process was so much fun. I've always really loved jewelry. My godmother, Jewish woman, has her like jewelry, like acumen and like,
of course,
is like 5-star. And she even has like Holocaust jewelry, like just,
wow.
Yeah, like from her family. It's like amazing. And I've always just wanted to be like her. And so when I went to design the ring for Forbes, she helped me design it. And I just was like thoroughly in love with the process. And I designed something because I felt like there was nothing out there that I wanted. I wanted something, but nothing was intriguing to me. And so I was like, I feel like I want to do this. I feel like I want to do this, but I don't want to do this from like a negative emotion or a negative, like I want it to feel aligned.
Yeah.
And so then I started to design, started to write things down on a paper, started to like source manufacture, like just like casually, like no intention of launching or anything. Casually source manufacturers, found someone that like, we're like, yeah, we can do this for you. And then on Fiverr, I found somebody to like create mock-ups for my designs and like, just like loosely. And then one lunch with Lindsay Schwartz, actually, we went to lunch together and she knew I had been like plugging away, like not even plugging away, just casually.
Yeah.
Dabbling. She's like, so when are you going to like launch the line? This was in like, I don't even know, probably like this year, but in January-ish or so.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, like November. And she was like, oh, and like the type of oh that you know, like your other entrepreneurial friend is like, you're playing
no.
I think you can do better than that. And so we just let it pass. And then I got in the car and I was like, yeah, why November? Like, what is time actually? I've been like diving deep into all of this Joe Dispenza stuff. And I'm like, what is time? Like, I just gave myself a date of November, but if I gave myself a date of 2 weeks, I can do this in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then when I got home, I told you I'm an instant action taker. So I call another friend that I know will keep me accountable. And I like explain, and they're like, no, like you can literally do it all now.
Yep.
You can do it all now. I'm like, fine, let's pick a date. I'm like, I need a fire under my ass. And she's like, what's a good date? So we pull up the calendar. And at this point, it's like end of January. And she's like, oh, I know. 2/2/2/2/2. I'm like, done. And that gave me literally like less than 2 weeks to like,
we were at Spin. We were at Spin, and you told us at Spin, like post our class, we were doing smoothies, and you were like, so I'm launching in 2 weeks. And we were all like, wait, what? Launching what? And you're like, the rings, wait, it's coming out. I want to just go back for a second, and you just glazed over it so effortlessly, but you sort of had what I call this crazy, stupid idea. You had this whisper, you had this pull, it's this passion, it's this hobby, it's this purpose, whatever. And just purely out of interest for yourself, you start to what you call dabble, right? You're poking around, you're dabbling. And so you casually started looking for a manufacturer. But this is what's really important. You didn't necessarily have all of the skills or resources that you would have needed, but you're resourceful enough to find them. So you get on Fiverr, which if you're unfamiliar with Fiverr, it's like Upwork. You need to know it if you're an entrepreneur, and you could hire people there for particular jobs. Anything. You can pay hourly, you could pay per project, like dollars, pennies on the dollar. So I saw this, you drew stuff on like a napkin and you sent it over to someone on Fiverr, and they created like a 3D. I'm not kidding. You literally drew on a napkin. You go into Fiverr, you find someone overseas to create a 3D version, a mock-up, which is called, they do it on a CAD program. And so a manufacturer, a good one maybe could work off of a napkin, right? But most manufacturers want some sort of a CAD 3D a visual. And so you find someone, you pay this person, still not realizing that you're necessarily going to build this whole company. And they create this thing, you bring it to the manufacturer, and next thing you know, you have rings in person on your fingers. And the next step at that point was kind of like, okay, cool. There's packaging, which I remember looking at packaging with you, and we're talking about packaging and how did they get it delivered and how many SKUs do you come out with at first, because you had tons of drawings. And then the Instagram page, which is what I think of you. When I think of you, I think of just like, oh my gosh, branding, like luxury branding is what I think of when I think of you. So to me, you have that on lock, and you decide basically in 2 weeks, you're launching this thing. You tell your friends about it, and you just do it with like no attachment to what it looks like. No, I don't know if you had a massive goal for how many followers or how many sales you were going to make, but you just put it out into the world.
Yeah, that's literally what it was. And you know what I think? Like, I didn't really, and I feel like a lot of beautiful stuff comes from it, but like at that point, I got my mind to a place where like I actually don't have like shit to lose. I don't.
It's so true.
Yeah. And like I feel like I'm in a good place. I haven't perfected it, but like I'm in a good place in the practice of like, if I fail, that's fine. It's at least it'll get me to the next thing quicker. The quicker I act on the failure, then the next thing will at least hopefully be better than the last thing, even by a sliver, which is a win. It's quicker. At least I got there faster. I've learned something. So like, yeah, and I will say too, I always have felt like this. I feel like this with two industries, network marketing and marketing. Like if you've been in marketing or if you've been in network marketing for whatever reason, I think I know the reasons, but two separate ones. They're super successful. Like Jacqueline Johnson, for example, she had Create and Cultivate. She had a marketing agency. I think she was even Forbes 30 under 30 for her marketing agency.
Yeah.
And look at Create and Cultivate. And in my mind, that group of people, they just know how to market things. The business side, you figure out. You find somebody to help you figure out. It's the marketing and the branding and the content creation that's hard for so many people, right?
Yeah.
And then for network marketers, I'm like, the self-work, I feel like is game changer. You just go through life much quicker because the emotional intelligence, the reflection, the like, okay, I realize it's not myself. Let me instantly change it so that the next time this happens, I'm not in that same pattern. Like those people I feel like are super successful. And I'm like, I have some of those attributes, at least from a marketer.
Yeah.
I can do this. The back end I will figure out.
Well, I think it's pattern recognition in both lanes. There's like the recognizing the patterns of what works and what doesn't work, or how quickly can I make the shift, or when this happens, then, you know, when it's like in Kajabi, if this, then that, right? Like
Exactly.
It's literally pattern recognition. It's so true though. So I agree with you. When you're good at marketing, and this is what's funny about, I mean, the coaching industry, but we've got a lot of really good marketers, but they're not necessarily great coaches, or they don't have great products, or they don't have great services, but they're really good marketers, and they crush the people who maybe you're sitting here listening going, oh my gosh, I know, like I literally have a better program than XYZ person, but they're better at marketing. And who is quote unquote winning financially, right? Who's getting more leads and more clients? It's always going to be the marketer.
Always.
Yeah.
Always always, like just always. So yeah.
So is that your focus right now?
Yes. Well, no. Yes and no. My focus right now, I hired a luxury positioning coach because I feel like I needed to up level that, because I was nervous that I would be falling into like the fast fashion of jewelry, which I feel like is like a never ending cycle. I just didn't want to be fast fashion. Like,
which you're not, and your price points are not either.
Right. So that has been amazing. I also hired this creative because it's like, you guys know, like when it comes to looking inside of your business, it's like you can't see a damn thing, but you look inside someone else's, you're like, oh, easy, just move this. So I hired a creative to help me like round out my branding. So I feel really great about it. Like I love my logo. I love the direction, but I just need someone to help me like execute it even further. Yeah. And so those two people have been like game changer for me. Just really like expanded my thought process on all of the things beyond belief. So that's what I've been working on now. And I imagine we'll start to see that roll out maybe in the next like 2-3 weeks.
Oh my gosh, so exciting. All right. I can literally talk to you all day, and I'm so grateful that we got to do this on a recording, but I want to be mindful of your time. So just a couple quick speed round questions for the audience. What are you currently reading?
Ooh, I actually am not currently reading anything, but I am about to purchase a course. I imagine there's going to be some readings in there. From Joe Dispenza. So it's like entry-level course.
Oh, he's the best. I'm so excited for you.
I know.
I fell down his rabbit hole a couple of years ago and I've never been able to come back out. He is just the best.
Well, it's with the goal of at some point this year, I want to go to like the week-long retreat. Yes. Yeah. So.
Well, if you want to go alone, I totally get it. If you want to go together, I'm in. I've been dying to go.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to take you. I will probably take you up on that.
I love it. So cool. Favorite meal?
Ooh, a rainbow roll with no cucumber inside. And the artificial crab has to be like chopped with like mayo, not just like the crab stick. Favorite.
So good. Best piece of advice you've gotten or favorite quote?
Ooh, a clutter around you is a manifestation of clutter in the mind.
Ooh, say it again.
Clutter around you. Like before we recorded, I was like, you don't want to see the other side of my office, is a manifestation of clutter in your mind.
I love that. I love that. I had a client who would do like one clean a day, she would call it. And just every day, whether it was a drawer or a desktop, like one little thing would get cleaned in the house every day. Cause there's so much clutter around. It's crazy how we collect it. And
energetically, it's crazy what it does to you.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, talk about a blocked throat chakra. When you have clutter everywhere, you're blocking all your chakras. I mean, receive. All right. If I were to cut you a check today for $50,000 that you had to use for the business, in the business, with the business, what would you do with the 50K?
Ooh, I think, that's a tough one. I would probably, sorry, I'm thinking.
That's okay.
That's a tough one. I was going to say I would get some things in bulk to like packaging and stuff. It's just like so expensive. Yeah. Like to save me on costs. But I think right now in this season, I think it would be amazing from an audience acquisition standpoint. I don't even think cutting down on the cost is the problem right now. I think when we get at volume, it will be. But I think right now, audience acquisition, it would be figuring out what is my like audience acquisition strategy. Is it partnering with like a celebrity and creating a collection, right? Is it influencer marketing? Like, what is it? Is it?
I am not a celebrity, but I will 100% partner on a collection and you don't have to give me $50,000. I would be thrilled to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
I love that. I love that you're thinking about audience.
Yeah. Or even just figuring out what is the pathway to get into retail.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Final question before we can tell everyone where to find you. And that is Digital Business Evolution Podcast was named, the whole company, Digital Business Evolution, because of all the pivots and the growth. And we see evolution as just a part of the business and a part of our human experience, right? So our businesses are a reflection of us and they will only grow to the extent that we grow. You are like the master of evolution and of pivoting. What do you see is the next evolution for you?
I think the next evolution for me is optimizing a few things and really tapping into a new level or the next level or like the larger capacities of like my brain even. Like there are places that I'm holding myself back in health. There are places that I'm holding myself back mentally, spiritually, meditating way more. I meditate very often, but like hour-long quantum realm.
Yeah, the Joe D ones.
Yes.
Hour and 15. I love it. That's so exciting. All right, Aisha, where can everybody find you if they want to buy your jewelry, if they want to learn from you, if they want to do consulting with you? You have so many things going on.
Yeah. So my personal Instagram, you can find me AISHA. My consulting is AAM Firm, FIRM. And then for my jewelry line is Shop Whxte, and it's WHXTE.
How many SKUs do you have right now for rings?
So I have 5 right now, and the full collection will launch like the last week of August, and that'll be 10. There will be 10 things dropping then, 10 in addition.
Oh my gosh. And by the way, this is all, they're gold and platinum and diamonds. And so, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Just incredible. Aisha, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for being on. I just love you and all these conversations. And thanks for catching up with me on a recorded podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. This was so great.
Yeah.
This is so great.
As always, if you got something from this episode, it would mean the world to Aisha and I if you screenshot it, tagged us both on social media at Aisha and at I am Jessica DeRose. Tell us what your biggest takeaways were. And of course, go give Whxte a follow. As always, cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.